that Hannah and I have seen as we're doing verification. And so problems that folks have run into, challenges, and just hopefully we can sort of address some of those things all together. And certainly we are available to address those problems individually or challenges individually. So please let us know if there's something that we can do to help out with that. But we just kind of wanted to sort of bring everybody together, as many people as we could together, to kind of go over some of this stuff. So like I said, if you have questions, drop them in the chat. And let's see, I'm going to check in with Nicole real quick and see how they're coming, and then we can get started. For those of you who just popped on, we're waiting on some folks in Orangeburg. They had a power outage, and we're waiting on them to get set up. So as soon as they get going, we're gonna go ahead and begin. We have Dr. Liliane Silva with us. She's gonna talk to us about some of our climate smart practices and go over some of the questions that we've had, and just some sort of general recommendations. And again, I would encourage all, if you have specific questions, to reach out to myself or Dr. Silva or one of your local agent, your area agent, but if you have questions or concerns about the program itself, and we'll try to get things answered for you. This is going to mostly be about technical type stuff tonight. If you have program questions about payments or enrollment and stuff like that, if you can direct those directly toward me, ask me directly those questions, and maybe we can talk about some of that stuff at the end if you have questions. But like I said, I'd like to focus on the more technical stuff and implementation tonight. So that's kind of where we'll be headed. Okay. Dr. Silva, would you like to take it away?
Sure, Maggie, absolutely. So, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So like Mag mentioned, we're going to be addressing a general overview of the practices, but also trying to focus on the questions that everybody has for this first year. So definitely, just to emphasize what I just mentioned, if you have any questions, please put them on the chat as we go. And we're going to be talking about them during the time that we're going to be here together this evening. So just to sort of like help with the structure of what we're going to be addressing at each time, we're going to start with the incorporation of legumes practice, just because this was one that there were a lot of questions about. And also we need to be addressing some things at this time, just to help with the timely management for the practice. And one of the major things is definitely soil pH. So we are in June, and soon we're going to be already looking at buying seeds for planting and then planting later this year. So right now it's definitely a good time to be thinking about the timing that you're going to be collecting soil samples and preparing for any amendments that you would need to address as well. So just as a general reminder, we're mostly most of the producers that we have under this grant enrolled are using clovers, are not necessarily using alfalfa. And but all the legumes that were usually used, we need to have that pH around 6.5. So the major reason is because of the distribution, the availability that we see of the nutrients. So sometimes this figure might look like too complicated, but on the bottom here, you can see the pH, and I hope you can see my mouse, but on the bottom here, you can see like the pH ranges. So I'm circling the 5.5. And most of the nutrients that we are going to be needing to be available and on the amount that they need to be available, it's gonna be on this range that we talk about, the 6.5, and this is gonna be what we would like to have the range for the clovers to not only be able to access the nutrients in the soil, but also develop their roots and really become established well and be part of that stand. So this is just to really emphasize what would be the range that we would be looking at for planting incorporation of legumes, planting legumes into the pastures that we're going to be using under the ground. And depending how low your pH is, it may take 3 to 6 months to increase the pH through the incorporation of lime in the soil. So definitely this is something that requires us to be thinking ahead, at least 4 months ahead, if not more, to be able to get to the range that wouldn't be necessarily for the legumes. Just thinking about when we're going to be planting, if we're going to be overseeding Bermuda grass, Bahia grass fields, is going to be early fall. So definitely this should be something to address. And it's a good idea to collect soil samples around the same time of the year, each year, to just have a good comparison year after year. But if you need to, you could be collecting a soil sample in a different period just to check how the pH is. And if you need help, you can always reach out to us, and especially to your local extension agent, that we would be glad to help on this. Another point that we had a lot of questions about was how to select which legume to use on the area, on your farm, on your operation. So for the legume incorporation of legumes practice, we had either clovers or alfalfa as options to be used, and it's for me. Every time that I get this question, I will be asking several of these questions and just to get a better sense about the operation before I make a recommendation or discuss some of the options that somebody will have for their property. And one of the major things is really to understand what is the forage program. And when I say this, is what is the base forage that you have in operation? Do you plant something else around during the season? Or are you thinking about planting something else? Then we definitely need to understand what are the needs in terms of forages, not only the yield, but also the distribution of the forage throughout the year. And what is the quality that it is required during different periods of the year, especially when we're talking about clovers, we're talking about a period of the year that we would have animals that need to gain 2 to 3 pounds per day. That's usually our goal for some operations during the time that we would be able to incorporate clovers in the pasture. So definitely it's good to understand what's going to be the animal categories that you have on your property during that time, and what would be the goals in terms of gain. If you are thinking about increasing soil fertility and how it's going to be the management on the property to try to work that out and increase nutrient cycling through how the animals will be managed throughout that time on that area. And also, we are talking about a grant that we're able to provide incentives for everybody to adopt this practice, but it's always good to think about what is the investment of both money, but also time that's going to be required for that system to work with what you're going to be incorporating into that plan, your forage program, your forage plan that you already have for your operation. And when I say time, it's also going to involve what's the level of management skills that you already have, and what would be the needs for additional knowledge, and what's the equipment. And there are several other factors, but mostly we need to look at what would be the species and the varieties that would be adapted to the field that you're going to be using in terms of soil characteristics, drainage. A lot of factors plays on that. So we do need to understand this, and that's the reason that I always say reach out to your local extension agent to discuss these points and see which clovers would be better, or which clover, if only one clover or a mixture would be what you're trying to incorporate on your pasture. That's always good to discuss this with your local extension agent to understand which one would work better, and then definitely work the seeding rates that you're going to be planting, because there's a lot of factors that play out on that. And some clovers are recommended for fescue. Some others might work better parts where we have Bahia grass and Bermuda grass in the state. So there's definitely a lot of factors that we need to consider there. And one of the options that we have is to use those legumes in mixtures with grasses. So those can be mixtures that we're gonna overseed Bahia grass, dormant Bahia grass and Bermuda grass fields, pastures with grasses and annual grasses, annual cool season grasses and legumes, which is this example right here. And we have several ways that we can mix, several options that we can produce mixtures to meet some of those goals for the operation. One of the good things about using mixtures is that we can work on a way to balance out the distribution of forages throughout the season. So especially for Bahia grass and Bermuda grass fields that will be dormant, having grasses with legumes is always a good option, because then we can have a balance to extend that grazing season a little further. And we can do that by which species of grasses, annual grasses we're going to be mixing with which varieties of clovers as well, because we have some clovers that will peak earlier in the season, peak production earlier in the season. Some of them will be a little towards the middle, and then some of the others will be a little later in the season, May, June, even some years it can extend to June. So you can really balance the yield that you're gonna get, the distribution to meet your needs on your operation, but also the quality that you're gonna get, and be meeting the animal performance that you expect with that system. And this way, we're also going to be able to work on putting some nitrogen into the soil, especially when we have legumes in companion with grasses. We're able to work that out, because when the legumes establish and starts to really grow well and yield, we do need to get them to properly establish before, just to make sure that we get them working properly and being able to fix nitrogen. And then after they had time to establish, they can start to share some of that nitrogen with the grasses that are in companion, which could be the annual cool season grasses or fescue. When we're looking at pastures, fescue pastures that we're going to be incorporating red clover or white clover. And this is a really good way to also be working on the nutrient cycling that we're going to have on that area, because we're going to be managing the animals that will be grazing these pastures through rotational stocking. So they are going to be harvesting these forages from the pasture, but while they are there, they're also depositing excreta. So they're depositing urine and feces, which will be recycling on that system and be incorporated as nutrients and providing fertility for that mixture during the season. And one of the things that we always get asked is if we're using legumes, do I still need to be fertilizing with commercial nitrogen fertilizer? When we plant legumes, it is recommended to put about 30-40 pounds of N at planting or just after planting to get the legumes going, and to get whatever you planted actually growing and getting started, established on those that first period. But then when we have the legumes, if the seeds were inoculated, properly inoculated, are good quality seeds, we would expect for the legumes, if they establish properly in the area, to be able to start fixing nitrogen. And then during the season, if we really are able to do a good management for the animals to be consuming that forage and recycling the nutrients in that area, we would not need to provide nitrogen during the season where we have legumes, if we have a proper percentage, because this could compromise the ability of the legumes to fix nitrogen. So this is something that we need to discuss a case by case, by seeing how much legumes you're going to be planting, and then seeing how well those establish, because that's going to be determinant whether you're going to need to provide commercial nitrogen fertilizer, and what's going to be the impact if you had the legumes well established on your area and you provide the commercial nitrogen fertilizer, what's going to be the impact on that biological fixation. So this is something that we would need to definitely discuss on a case by case. And then we are adding just some examples here. So we thought it would be better to just split and show what could be some options for Bermuda grass and Bahia grass pastures. And then we're going to talk about pasture pastures in a second. So just to give one example, what we could be using to overseed establish Bermuda grass or Bahia grass pastures with mixtures of annual cool season species. One of the examples that we can use is ryegrass with clover, with crimson clover in this case. And I'm putting here the seeding rates that I would generally recommend when I'm talking about this with somebody, about them incorporating their system. Sometimes we can go a little over 12 pounds. This is a case by case. We can talk about that a little more of the producer and really get a sense if that would make sense for them or not. But most of the time, most producers will be using more than one clover. And usually this second example would be something that would be more common to see. And I just put here rye with oats. I know some people prefer one or another, not necessarily mixing them. But I just put a different example here just to show some what else could be done. And you can notice that ryegrass stays with 15 pounds per acre, but then we have red clover and crimson clover, and when we add them, it's gonna be closer to 20 pounds per acre. We are gonna have crimson clover growing earlier in the season and really having a peak of production earlier in the season. So adding red clover would extend a little further when we would be seeing the red clover being part of the diet of the animals in the mixture. So this is definitely something that we can consider because it helps with the distribution of the clovers on the mixture. And like I said, we can also incorporate clovers into tall fescue pastures. This is generally the rule of thumb for the seeding rate that we would be using for red clover or white clover, what I'm showing here. For all these, we always need to know what's going to be the planting method to be used. When we're going to be drilling the seeds for these mixtures, we're going to be using no-to-drill because we're talking about perennial grass stands. So if we're going to be drilling them, this is going to be the recommendation. When we're broadcasting seeds, we definitely need to bump up the seeding rate. Generally, my recommendation would be 20 to 30% more seeds, just because we end up losing some of that seed, but also some of the seed might not necessarily have a good seed soil contact when we're just broadcasting. You can use, and we're going to talk in a little bit about the planting method. So we can get into that a little bit later. But, and this is going to be something that you're going to always hear me say, always consult your local extension agent for recommendations. These are some examples, but the best thing for you is to check if what you're thinking about or what you saw somewhere or what you read somewhere could be an option that makes more sense for your system, your operation, just because it helps with getting the best plan in place for something that's going to work out for you. But also, we're always trying to look at what can optimize the responses from the resources that you're going to be implementing on your operation. So always check with your local extension agents for how to select those mixtures. And something else that was pretty common question that popped up was how much clover should I have in my pasture? So the general recommendation to avoid issues with bloat is usually to have between 20 and 30% of the in weight basis in the diet of the animal. So we're not talking about 20 or 30% of the seeds that you're going to plant. We're talking about what's going to actually be the composition of the diet that the animals will be eating. These are some pictures from studies at the Edstone REC in Blackville. We discussed about this and we thought it would be good to just show some pictures how 20 something percent looks like on a pasture. I know it's just an angle because like it looks really nice. The picture from especially the one on the left, that one looked really nice and it might look like there's a lot of clover there, but we were collecting the samples and there was actually just about 23% of clovers in the composition of those diets in weight, in dry matter weight, because I had 5 species and just 2 clovers and a lot of grass, a lot of ryegrass at that point, because this picture was taken in May this year. So this is definitely something that we need to be careful about, because we need to always think about the animal health perspective. So avoiding issues with bloat is important. And using mixtures is going to be one of the best ways. Mixtures with grasses will be one of the best ways to really balance out the diet that the animals are going to be consuming. Another way to work this out is if we have areas or pastures that will be really high in clover for some reason in a place. It's always a good idea to provide some dry hay before the animals go into the pasture, and not turning animals too hungry in an area. It's another way, and we can always provide some supplements that will help with avoid issues with bloat when they are grazing legumes. So definitely those things are important to always be thinking about. And it's not just the animal gains that we're looking at, but also just general percentage of legumes that we're going to be looking as the recommended amount to have on a pasture is going to be what's generating the biological fixation of nitrogen. And this biological fixation number varies. And we are going to have ranges that we usually refer to. So when we have, depending on the clovers that we have, depending on how well they establish and how much yield we're going to have with clovers, we can get from 40 to 100 pounds of nitrogen being added to the system. It's not necessarily going to be added at the same time on a given time during the season. This is going to be something that the clovers will be fixing nitrogen. It's just going to be available as it goes, but also some of the nitrogen will be available as residual nitrogen after the season is done. And if we overseeded Bahia grass, Bermuda grass fields, we can definitely see differences on the yield and some of that nitrogen, the residual nitrogen that was left from the clovers. And this is the case for this pasture, this trial that I have, that these pictures are from. I have treatments where I don't have any legumes on them, and I can definitely see the difference on the yield on the first grazing cycle after we end the cool season mixtures on that area. So we see the residual nitrogen that stays in the soil after the animals grazed during the fall and winter months. And just moving forward, so something else that we've been trying to emphasize when we're talking about legumes is that we recommend getting high quality, tested, certified, and inoculated clover seeds, legume seeds. This is very important because the quality of the seeds, and we're gonna have a label on the next slide just to show what we're going to be referring to. But when we buy seeds from a proper source that tested that seed, we're gonna have not only the percentage of what is actually the clover seeds, but also we're gonna get a test for germination. And these numbers are going to help us to correct for poor live seeds. And we're going to discuss poor live seed in a second, but we always give everyone seeding rates for what you should be using for each species or the mixtures that we're going to be using. And when we're planting monocultures, so we're planting a single clover, we're going to be using one seeding rate. And then when we start mixing plants, mixing clovers or clovers with something else, we will need to adjust those seeding rates, because then we're trying to give all the different species a chance to properly establish and that mixture to work well with establish well, and so we can manage and get the response that we're trying to get on that. And the reason that I'm saying this is because we are going to provide a table that we have those seeding rates and also provide some information about seeding depth and additional information. And these are some of the options that we have for clovers to be incorporated into the pastures. But it's always important to remember that some of these seeding rates will be addressing, for example, crimson clover. When we're planting crimson clover by itself, we're going to be bumping a little bit higher that seeding rate. And then if we're mixing with something else, we will be adjusting those individual seeding rates so we can have all the different species establishing well. And you need to be always careful whether you're seeing a seeding rate that's for if you're drilling the seeds or if you're going to be broadcasting them, you're going to need to adjust that for broadcasting as well. For clovers and alfalfa as well, for some legumes, but mostly for clovers and alfalfa, they usually we will have most of the seeds available. We already have the coating, which is going to be the inoculant for those seeds that will come on the seeds already inoculated. For this reason, we do need to correct for poor live seed. When we are going to be planting, the seeding rate that we're giving, we're going to be talking about that number on a poor live seed basis. And this is something that we noticed that probably would make sense for us to talk about and just break this calculation in parts for everybody to be aware of what we're talking about when we're mentioning the poor live seed rate. So this is a label of a clover, red clover. So we are going to have a percentage that's going to say per seed. That's the percentage of that weight of that bag that's actually seeds. And then we have a percentage for the inert material that's just coating, the inoculant, and sometimes has some nutrients, a red that's coating those seeds. And for this one, it's just 34% for the coating material. Most of the bags that I bought so far in my life, and you all can share your experience later as well, but most of my experience has been that usually that number for the inert material will be 48%, roughly. It's almost half of that bag most of the time. And then we also have the germination rate. Germination rate, the way that this is obtained, it's a test that the companies who are selling the seeds, they're required to provide this information. So they're going to test 100 seeds and see how many of those seeds germinate. And that's what they're reporting. So we do need to get what's the poor seed percentage and what's the germination percentage, because those are the numbers that we're going to use to calculate the poor live seed. So this might sound complicated at first, but for poor live seeds, we're basically multiplying the percentage of poor seeds times the germination percentage and dividing that number by 100. And with that number, we're going to correct what the actual seeding rate is supposed to be. So here, we're just using that label from the previous slide to give an example. So the per seed is 65%. The germination is actually use 85% on my germination here, not 80, but you should use 80. And then we just multiply the per seed percentage by the germination percentage. And this number that we obtain on this part, we divide by 100. And it's going to give you the rate, the percentage that you're going to use to correct the rate. So for example, if we were supposed to use 10 pounds of G seeds as the seeding rate, we're going to divide the 10 pounds by 55%, and then we obtain what the actual per live seed rate will be, just 18 pounds. Just because we have about 35% of that material that's coating, plus we need to account for how many of those seeds are expected to germinate, with just 80% of that was what's given on the germination test. This is important because, as a rule of thumb, 50% of what you're planting will only be what's going to be actual seeds that are good and are going to germinate. So if you don't correct this seeding rate by making this calculation, if we only use 10 pounds, you actually are only planting 5 pounds, roughly 6 pounds of that amount that would actually be viable seeds that would be germinating properly on that area. So definitely it's something that's important. And again, it might sound complicated, and we're here to help. We're be glad to just discuss this further as much as we need, but definitely something that's important to remember when we're working with seeds, because some of the other species will also have different germination rates. And I always check the label because we need to make sure that we're correcting the seeding rates for that. So about planting methods, we have options when we're going to be planting clovers. So one of the options is drilling. When we're going to be this is not a pasture site. This is an area that was planted on my picture here, but most of the areas that we're going to be using will be perennial pastures. So no-till drilling is the way to go, because we're able to open up that sod and be able to cut the rows to plant. And first thing that we always need to do is make sure that we're going to clean up the drill and really do a good job, because we want to avoid having contaminations from seeds and other things from other areas. But also, a lot of times these drills might just stay stored somewhere, and a lot of spiders tend to go on the tubes and have a lot of spider webs on that. Clover seeds are really small. If we do not have those tubes properly cleaned, you are not going to realize that you're not planting some of that rows until you just end a large part of your field, and then you stop to check and you still have your box filled with seeds. And it's always important to check if the seeds are coming out properly, if nothing is on the way in any part or of the drill. Always clean it up really well and check if everything is working well. And it's important to calibrate the drill well, properly, as you should, both using the proper seeding rate, but also the seeding depth. Except the crimson clover and red clover that have larger seeds, a lot of those clover seeds are really tiny. If you plant them too deep, they're not going to germinate. And this is one of the major reasons for failure of stands of clovers and alfalfa, actually, because of the size of the seeds. If we're putting them too deep, that's just going to be something that's just not going to work. And we might end up running 2 years that we're not able to get a good establishment. So definitely important to calibrate the drill and make sure that that's working properly. Then for anybody that's going to be broadcasting, and I mentioned this before, it's important to adjust the seeding rate that you're going to be using. So when we're talking about drilling, we're definitely going to be able to put that seeds a little better in contact with the soil instead of just broadcasting the seeds. So when we broadcast seeds, even the larger cool season grasses, the larger seeds of cool season grasses that we would be planting, we also need to adjust those when you're going to be broadcasting. So generally, the rule of thumb is 20 to 30% increase of those seeding rates, just to make sure that we're going to be getting them, giving them a better chance to have a proper seed soil contact. And sometimes we can pull a drag harrow or some roller, something to just try to get a better seed soil contact. And it helps to also plant when you know that there's some chance of rain, because that also improves the chance of the seeds to get on a proper contact with the soil. One practice that we can use is frost seeding with pasture pastures. So we would be using the regular seeding rates that we would generally be recommending for red and white clover. And most people will be using some type of spinner equipment. And what we're going to be doing here, we're going to be relying on the cycles of freezing and thawing the soil to incorporate those seeds in the soil. And for this reason, the recommendation is always to plant in February through early March, because we need to have those cycles of freezing the soil. And after March, we may or may not get enough cycles to really be able to incorporate those seeds in the soil. This is something that can be done for pasture pastures in the state, and it's a good option that a lot of people do regularly on their pastures. We talked about soil testing and correcting the pH. Those will be factors that will definitely be important for managing the legumes, for proper establishment, for persistence during the time that they're supposed to last in the pasture, and also to achieve nitrogen fixation. And we're going to talk about reseeding in a second. Most of the legumes that most of the clovers that we're going to be using are annual plants. One of them is biennial, white clover is perennial. So these are some important points that we need to understand when we're managing them. But all of them, my recommendation would be, when we're establishing them, to wait at least until they achieve around 10 to 12 inches to start grazing them in the season. So we're talking about what's the height, the average height that stands, that canopy should be for when we're moving the animals in the area to graze. This is the height, the average height that I'm referring right now, the 10 to 12 inches. For stubble height, my recommendation is to not go lower than 4 inches. The reason for that is that we're always talking about averages here. So there will be some parts of your field or your pastures that will be lower than 4. Some parts will be a little higher than 4. We always need to make sure that we are going to be checking the height. That's one of the best ways to check and make sure that you're going to be managing that area properly throughout the season, and rely on rotational grazing to do that. Then I talked briefly about what to expect in terms of nitrogen fixation. I'll just emphasize this. Percentage of clovers that will be established properly will really be able to grow well on the area. That's going to be really important. How that clover, how that mixture will be managed during the season, it's also going to be a determinant of how much those clovers are able to fix nitrogen throughout the season. And persistence of those clovers, even if they're annual species, persistence during the season that's expected of them to be growing, that's going to be important because they're only going to be fixing nitrogen properly when they're fully established, and they need to have a proper root system to be fixing fixing the nitrogen properly, and then starts to really spread the nitrogen for the grasses in companion. We have some clovers that have potential to reseed. Some of them have really high potential. Some of them, for example, crimson clover is not something that you are going to see a lot of people talking about crimson clover as one of the clovers that they are going to be relying on reseeding. But if you manage these clovers properly at the end of the season, which means that you might need to remove the animals and allow the plants to produce the flowers, and then you need to see that the seeds are forming, and those seeds will be maturing after and dropping on the ground. Some of those seeds are able to germinate on the next year. So definitely the management that we're going to be needing to do when we're trying to have some of those clovers to reseed, it's going to be important at the end of the season. However, we cannot expect that just doing this will be enough. Should not need to plant annual clovers again on the second year or the third year if you want to have them on the mixture. After some years, you are able to see how much of clovers you are being able to get on those areas, but you're going to need to really see year after year what's the amount of seeds that are actually being deposited and also growing on the following season there. Meg, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I have a comment, a question, sort of a comment, sort of a question, from somebody. It says, when I graze red clover in fescue, the cattle eat the clover to 1 inch before they touch the fescue. So what do you recommend for managing that situation?
So their best thing to do would be to first, what is the I need to understand what is the average height that those clovers are when you are turning the animals in the area for the first time, like for whatever time that you're going to put the animals in. I would like to know what that average height was.
10
And
inches.
10 inches, okay. It's something that we're going to be working with averages. So probably we're going to need to remove those animals before able to get it low, because 1 inch is very low, and they are going to select to some extent, but they're not going to be looking for clovers, not necessarily just looking for clovers all around before they start consuming the grass. Something that you could try to do is remove them a little earlier to just avoid that situation, because if you let the clovers get that small early in the season, this means that the animals are consuming most of the leaf area. So those clovers are probably not going to come back. You might need to adjust what's going to be your initial stubble high in the early part of the season to allow the clovers to have some residual leaf to be able to come back. I will emphasize this in the field as well, but when we're talking about heights, we're talking about averages in a pasture. We're not talking about individual points throughout a field. We need to have averages, and that means that several points need to be measured throughout the season, and points where it represents the average condition of that pasture. So this is important for us, and it's going to be part of the management as well that we will need to do.
I'm
Go ahead,
wondering, Mr. Davis says they ate it all the first day. I'm wondering if could that be a factor of needing to put more seed out itself? Is it possible that we need to increase the seeding rate to just have more clover there? I'm just kind of wondering.
Yeah, just could be something as well, but we need to see exactly how much of the clover established, what's the seeding rate he's using. And I'll be honest with you, I knew who asked that question because I had that conversation with him on his farm in April. So I knew who that question came from. Anything else?
We
You're
can always
muted.
learn from each other.
Absolutely. So let's and I'll let people ask, but let's just talk about a few things on the grazing management portion. Just again, just a revision, just a reminder of some of the points, but also addressing some of these major questions that we have been getting. So one of the frequently asked questions that we got was the target height for start grazing the annual cool season species. My recommendation will always lean towards the 10 to 12 inches to turn animals into an area. And I do want to emphasize something here. So on this picture here, it's a fescue trial that I have at the Simpson farm. Look at this grazing stick. It's about six something inches on that part right there. So when we're measuring heights on a pasture, we do not want to press the grass down to measure. We just need to use something as a reference to see where it would be on the grazing stick. So for me, for example, looking here, the grazing stick always needs to be upright, properly upright, not leaning towards any of the sides. But it would be roughly 6 inches on that part of that area there. And on a pasture, my rule of thumb would be to take at least 15 heights throughout the area and be randomly walking. I like the zigzag pattern because you need to pay attention to several things. Some of them are areas where the animals defecated, urinated. Those are areas that they are going to be avoiding at least for one grazing cycle. So those are going to be higher than other parts of the canopy. So those should be avoided. Then areas where it's like next to trees, shade, or water that's going to be tend to be overgrazed. Those are probably not areas that we need to be taking measurements, but you need to look at the average condition of a pasture and be taking those points throughout to and taking notes somewhere on your phone or a really handwritten, because we need to talk about averages when we're talking and reporting those heights. This goes for both the entry height, but also the stubble height. And for stubble height, my recommendation is always to average 4 inches or the 4 to 5, 6 inches. Try to not go below that because that's going to compromise how long those plants will be growing throughout the season. And it goes for the annuals as well, just especially on the first grazing event of the season. If we graze the plants too low, annual plants, they don't have as much energy reserved in the roots yet, or they're really not going to be able to have a lot because they have a shorter season. So if they don't have enough residual leaf area and they don't have a lot of energy reserves, it's going to be more difficult for them to really be able to regrow after the grazing event if we graze it too low, if we overgraze it some of the areas. We do have a publication on the Land Grant Press, which is just link here. It talks a little bit about how to measure the height and also how to adjust the stocking rate. So when we're measuring the height, of the pasture with a grazing stick, we're able to estimate how much grazable forages we have per inch of that pasture. And that's a very important information for us to be able to adjust how long a cycle for the rotational management that we're going to be doing, how long the animals will stay on an area. So there's a lot of ways that we can end up using this information. Go ahead, Maggie.
Nope, I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
So this is another mixture, is a mixture of cool season grasses. You can see the brassica and some grasses here. We have, like I said, when we're using the grazing stick, we have a table that, and that table is on the publication that I just mentioned as well, that have the pounds per acre per inch. And this information is also on the revised grazing stick that we were able to distribute. And if you don't have one, just reach out to us. We're glad to give one to you as well. And all this information will be used for adjusting the stocking rate. And we can optimize the management that we're going to be doing. And when you are able to, it's even something that you can work out to adjust your stocking rate, how many animals you might need to be adding to an area if we're trying to stick to, let's say, 5 days of the animals staying on that pasture. So sometimes when you have more forage, you might need to add more animals. This is the variable stocking rate. There are different ways that you can manage your rotational rotational grazing on your pasture, but this is one of the ways to really be able to adjust and use the information that you're getting by using the grazing stick without having to cut forages to estimate dry matter mass by doing that. Maggie, do you want me to go over? Do you want to stop and take questions? I know I've been talking too much. It's over 8.
I think if folks have questions, let's field some questions. And if folks specifically have questions about litter, then we can certainly dive into that. But I would like to maybe open up for questions if there are any right now.
Stop sharing. Just
you can put messages in the chat, or if you want to just unmute yourself and speak up and ask questions, we can do it that way too. And I know there's some folks that have multiple people on, so we'll be glad to take questions. However you want to spit them out. Not everyone at once.
This is Michael Gibson from Gibson Farm.
Hi there.
Can you hear me?
We can.
What are y'all doing because of the way that the weather's going with the drought? How are y'all handling that?
for the pastures that we currently have, is that what you mean for the Bahia? Where you're at, Mr. Gibson?
We're in Fairfield County and near Winsboro.
Okay. So right now, what do you have there? Do you have some annuals or just perennial?
Well, the clover's trying to come through, but we just don't have enough water. We're still doing rotational grazing. We planted some Sudan grass, trying to get summer grazing to come out, and we've been switching them from paddocks to paddocks, but there's just no rain. You can see the clover still trying to come through some of the Bermuda grass, but
sure.
I mean, we're doing some. We were lucky enough. We had about probably about 15 or 20 acres that we sprayed just to try to get it a little jump where we had a little moisture. They're on that now, but we're starting to have to feed some hay if
Mhm.
we don't get some rain.
Sure. So we usually plant the clovers on fall. So by now, by June, early July, usually they're gone from most of the pastures. So we would not expect to have those clovers being part of the field anymore at this point. But some years we might see Bermuda grass, especially if you planted red clover. Some years we can see red clover and Bermuda grass through July. That happened with me throughout the whole July last year until early August in Blackville. But right now, it's really towards the end of the season for the clovers, for sure, even for red clover, because today I was in the field and was over 100 degrees outside. So it's too hot for the clovers to stay. And it's been really extremely dry, at least on my neck of the woods. We barely got any rain in May and in June as well. And it's just a struggle for everybody. So if you have some clovers that are still holding up there, hopefully we can get some rain, but right now it would be the end of the season for them already. So we would not expect to have the clovers being a major part of the mixtures with Bermuda grass anyway. And I hope this answered your question.
Yes, it did. Thank you very much.
No problem. Maggie, I just wanted to address, there was a question that was sent to me directly.
Okay.
So the question was from Mrs. Hannah Wilkins. Are you referring to commercial nitrogen or poultry leader? If she is able to unmute, I just wanted to make sure that I understood this was for the clovers in mixture with annuals that I was talking about. Is that the case, Mrs. Hannah? Yes, she just said yes here. I was referring to commercial that can impact the biological nitrogen fixation by clovers. I think that was the question. That was the moment that you probably asked this question. Poultry leader, the source of nitrogen on the poultry leader is an organic source. So it's and also the release is slow, and it's not going to be impacting the ability of the legumes to fix nitrogen. So poultry leader is fine for you to apply, even after the legumes are at fixing nitrogen. But when we're going to have the legumes are red, fully grown, and if we go there and apply commercial nitrogen, that's going to impact the ability of the legumes to continue that process that would be fixing the nitrogen biologically. Literally, the legumes will understand that they don't need to be working that much and trying to fix nitrogen because the nitrogen is available there when you put commercial nitrogen in the area. So this is the reason that I was saying that. And if this is still confusing, just let me know and we can talk more about that. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one. This is Stewart Farms, Rutherford,
Mhm.
South Carolina. I planted the red clover last year mixed with oats and wheat, and the clover came up about 5%. Can you mix it with other products? Did it come up? But cause I mean, I just, it was just, you couldn't even hardly see it in the field. The oats and the wheat came up, but the the clover just, it came up on the end, and because I had it mixed, and then on the last exchange, it was just completely gone. I saw very little spots of it. I'm just wondering, can you really mix it with other, like wheat and oats for the winter? But I wasn't successful in the clover, but the wheat and the oats came up good. They come up real good together.
So let me just ask you, because I think my internet's not really good right now. Did you mention you had like a 5% that germinated from the clovers? Is that what you said?
You mean, was the germination all right?
Yeah.
I'm consuming it. I mean, when I got it from the feed store, but maybe the germination was real bad. I'm not sure. 'Cause, it did
Do
come
you
up.
do you remember the seeding rate that you used?
Do I remember? It's just a,
You said seeding?
Seeding rate, yes.
no,
No, you don't.
no,
Is that what you said?
No, he doesn't.
Okay.
no.
I think the best thing would be if you're able to contact me later, let's talk about that. I just want to make sure that I know what was the seeding rate that you use. A lot of times I see, uh, especially when you have, I know you mentioned wheat. I think you mentioned oats as well, right?
Mhm.
So especially when we have those two that will be germinating earlier in the season, sometimes if we were to have on that the seeding rate for those, sometimes we can have them shading too much the clovers, and that could impact the clover's ability to grow later in the season. But also, let's just, if you're able to, and I'll put my contact here, on the chat later. I think it would be good for us to just talk a little more when you're able to check what was the seeding rate that you use, and maybe we can adjust for this next season to just see if that would work better.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Maggie, there were a couple of questions on the chat.
When do you expect to have the yield test results for the ryegrass varieties?
So Nicole, that's gonna be late July, early August from my estimate. We're running the samples in the lab still, and some of those analyses we're only gonna be able to run in mid-July. So that's going to be the time that I'll have the full data, not just the yield, but also the quality of those plots by late July or first days of August. That's the plan right now.
And can you discuss litter application timing and when can you expect it to get some fertility for pasture plants? So litter
Sure.
application timing.
Okay. So Mark, when we're talking about applying litter, we need to time out with like when you would need to use those nutrients by. So what I mean is, for example, if we're trying to use those nutrients for the cool season annual plants that you establish, best thing would be to really apply apply the liter 30 to 45 days, probably 30 would be better, when the plants would already be expect to be germinating and growing. And that would depend when you planted them. So that's the reason that I'm not mentioning a specific month of the year, but the best weight, like the best use of those nutrients would be for putting them when the plants are already growing, because a little bit at least like it starts to establish, because they're going to be able to use those nutrients. If we apply the litter and there's nothing growing, just a bare soil, and we're still waiting on like it's still going to take some time for planting, a month or so, we're going to be losing nutrients throughout that period when there's nothing growing on the area. And that litter usually will be releasing the nutrients, most of the nutrients within the 45, 60 days after application, after spreading the litter in an area. So it's really important to time out properly when we're trying to use that nutrient for a specific crop. What I mean by this is that, for example, for Bermuda grass and Bahia grass fields, uh, I've seen, including last year, I saw some people that end up applying the litter just when they were about to plant the cool season in a pasture of Bahia grass or Bermuda grass. And so they went there, they mowed the Bermuda grass, they applied the litter, and then it took them about 30 days or so to plant the cool season mixture. And what happened for them was that the Bermuda grass grew back and shaded the cool season mixture that they planted because it was too warm in October, early November. So the litter was just sitting over the Bermuda that they had just mowed and it grew back. So this is something that we always need to be careful. And I forgot to mention this, when we're overseeding Bermuda grass and Bahia grass fields, we need to try to time out as much as we can for the time that those grasses will be going dormant, because if they continue to grow and you have the cool season species there, the cool season plants trying to come up, trying to establish, Bermuda grass, Bahia grass will be shading the oats, the wheat, the clovers that you planted. So that's the reason that we usually refer to overseeding the areas late October, early November-ish for most of our region here where we use Bahia grass and Bermuda grass, just to really try to have those really going to dormants as much as possible to avoid that issue with the perennial grass growing and shading, competing for nutrients, competing for water with the cool season plants that are just establishing. I think, did I answer a question, Mark? Do we have any other questions, Maggie?
Oh,
Those are the only questions. We got one on in the low country.
Okay.
Okay. I had one question that I planted the rye and the oats and the white clover, and I didn't get a good seed sow of the clover, but the rye and the oats done very good. Some areas in the bottom, wetted area bottoms,
Mm-hmm.
poor areas, the clover done real good there, but up on the hill it didn't. So I the seed rate for that was 5 to 10 pounds per acre.
5 to 10 pounds of what?
White clover per acre.
White clover, okay. And you didn't see a lot of white clover on the other parts, just on the parts that were lower, is that what you said?
It did good in the bottoms, the wet part, but up
Yeah.
on the hills where it dry, like it didn't do that good.
White clover is the best option that you have for areas where there will be some water logging. So definitely that's what you saw. I wonder if so did you use a drill for
Yeah,
their?
a regular rain drill.
I wonder if maybe some parts the seeding depth wind up being too deep for the white clover because it's such a tiny seed. Uh, if you have a clover box, a small seed box, that's always helpful to adjust that. But even though sometimes we end up having some parts of the field that we might have like some bump up or something, that the seeds end up being a little in some parts. This is something that I usually see with the smaller seeds like the white clover. Might be something to check if maybe on those parts there could be some reason that end up having that seed just going a little deeper than it should. And you definitely know better your field if that could be a possibility or not. But maybe something that you could adjust for the next year, a little more shallow for some parts if you need, just because it's such a small seed. But also you could try to use some other clovers on the other parts of the field if you think that would work. Because I definitely understand the white clover for the parts where you're going to have some water logging. But then we could possibly use some other clovers if you don't have the same issues on the other parts of the field that would be working well as well. And it could be like red clover, crimson clover, that will have a good distribution throughout the season, and also have larger seeds that could address some of that issue if you think that could be an option for you.
Hello? Hello, this is Moses Gibson. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Got a question. After spreading turkey litter, we started getting a lot of weeds. And I know the litter is supposed to be pure, but we're getting bitter weed. And to kill the bitter weed, we have to do 2,4-D, which kills, we planted white clover. But the white clover will come back, but it just slows the growth. Is anybody else getting weeds in their pasture after spreading litter?
Yes, yeah, I sprayed some chicken litter this year myself, and I ended up with a lot of mustard, yellow mustard, wild mustard.
Yeah. Okay.
It pretty near took over some of the areas.
All right. I just wanted to make sure we weren't the only one experiencing that problem. But yeah, we're getting a lot of weeds after spreading the litter.
This is
Now
something.
we're getting bitter weed.
Mhm. This is something that can happen sometimes. So because we're trying to use clovers, we're very limited on the options of herbicide that we can use. Something that will be the way to deal with some of these weeds is more the mechanical control, which is going to be mowing some areas to avoid the weeds to go to seeds. Because when they go to seeds, you're going to get an issue that's just going to come back year after year, and it's just going to be
Yeah.
increasing on those areas. Um, it might be worth to check if maybe you could maybe could be a source of the litter that has more weeds than others. This could be an option, but I see some producers end up having some issues with weeds. And then definitely if you're going to be using legumes, you're going to be more limited on the timing and the products, herbicides that you can use. There are some options, but are more limited, like you said, especially we're not able to use the ones that have a long residual. And sometimes the mowing some areas will be one of the options that we can have.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
I had a comment here that says we had a bigger issue with weeds this year than in the past. We waited till June to spray 2,4-D. Our clover had pretty much played out by then. Hopefully the 2,4-D residue won't be an issue this fall when we plant again.
We are supposed to have some at least one product from a company that would allow us to do some control on areas where we have some clovers. And also there's a clover that's supposed to come out in the market within the next few years that would be able, would allow some better control of weeds by using that clover variety. So hopefully we can have some of those coming up in the market soon, but right now, yeah, we would have more limited options to use.
I also had a comment that said a wick applicator could help in this situation as well.
Can you say that again? I was reading close.
The comment was that a wick applicator could help in this situation as well. A wiper.
Just a wiper, yeah. So it's if it's above the growth of the clover, that could be an option as well. That's not something that a lot of people will have, but whoever has can potentially lend the equipment, and as long as you're not, you're able to adjust, not really be touching the clover, you are able to do some more control as well. That's a good option, Maggie.
Nicole, I think made an excellent way to kind of wrap up these questions. If we've got a few more questions, we can maybe take one more. But Nicole said that if you have specific questions, please contact your local agent. They are going to be your best resource about specific needs for your area. Please feel free to contact myself. And I think Dr. Silva you were gonna put I think a lot of folks have your information, but you were gonna add your information as well. Let's see. Lee also added, if you sprayed 2,4-D in early June, you should not have a residue issue with planting legumes in the fall.
Because it doesn't have a residual. So like Grazing next, Resilon, those products will be the ones that we're talking about having a long residual in the soil. So those are not options, but Lee made a good point.
Hannah, would you like the floor for a moment?
Yeah, not for anything actually related to this entire talk, but today is my last day with the Climate-Smart team. So now Maggie is manning the ship for a little bit, and there will be another team member coming on, but it's been a pleasure working with all of you and getting to know you and your farms. And I'll still be around Clemson. I'm going to be a PhD student with Dr. Silva. And so, if you ever see me around, feel free to say hi, and I'm very happy to be continuing in South Carolina Ag.
And we're glad to have you continue on board as well.
It's been a pleasure working with you, Hannah, and I know you've put a lot of miles on that Ford Explorer, so I know folks will miss you and we'll be asking about you, so keep me posted. All right, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. It's 8:30, and I think we said we would wrap up then. So if you have questions, keep them coming to agents, keep them coming to me and Dr. Silva, and please reach out if there's anything that we can do to help y'all implement these practices in your program. I appreciate you taking the time out of your very busy schedules and rain dances to join us tonight. It doesn't seem to be doing much good. So thank you very much. And y'all have a good evening, and we'll be seeing y'all soon. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, guys.